On April 11th, something happened in the Gulf that most major news networks barely covered, but its consequences could reshape the entire security architecture of the Middle East. Pakistani combat aircraft quietly landed at King Abdulaziz Air Base near Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. That's not just a routine military exercise. That is a nuclear-armed country planting its warplanes right next to the world's most critical oil infrastructure and pointing them directly at Iran. Today, we're going to break down exactly what happened, why it matters, and why this single deployment could be the spark that turns a regional conflict into something far more dangerous. Stay with me. This one is important. Let's start with the facts. Between 10 and 18 Pakistani aircraft arrived in Saudi Arabia. Reports suggest these include JF-17 Block 3 fighters, Pakistan's most capable frontline jet, alongside airborne support platforms for surveillance, command, and logistics. The JF-17 Block 3 is no ordinary aircraft. It's equipped with beyond visual range missiles and modern active electronically scanned array radar. It's not just a deterrent, it's a real combat platform. But here's what makes this even more significant. This deployment isn't just about aircraft. Saudi officials referenced a broader contingent of approximately 13,000 Pakistani personnel under their wider strategic defense agreement, covering logistics, force protection, and command integration. This is not symbolic. Riyadh and Islamabad are building a real, layered defensive posture on Saudi Arabia's eastern frontier. Now let's talk geography, because location is everything here. King Abdulaziz Air Base sits near Dhahran, right beside Saudi Arabia's eastern province. And the eastern province is the heart of Saudi oil production. It contains the terminals, the pipelines, the petrochemical plants, and the Gulf shipping lanes that the entire global economy depends on. This isn't an accident. By basing their aircraft here, rather than deep inside Saudi territory, Islamabad and Riyadh are sending a crystal clear message. These aircraft are here to shield the energy corridor. And that corridor has already been hit. On April 6th, an Iranian missile strike targeted the Jubal petrochemical complex, killing one Saudi citizen. The vulnerability is real. The threat is active. So Pakistan didn't just send jets to Saudi Arabia. Pakistan positioned nuclear-capable military assets right beside the infrastructure whose destruction would spike global oil prices, spike insurance costs, and send shockwaves through every economy on Earth. This is where it gets truly strategic and truly dangerous. Before this deployment, Iran's planners viewed Saudi Arabia's eastern province as a high-value, relatively low-risk pressure point. Hit the oil infrastructure, hurt the Saudi economy, send a political message, all without automatically triggering a wider war. That calculation is now broken. Because if Iranian missiles or drones strike Saudi energy facilities and even accidentally hit Pakistani aircraft, personnel, or support systems stationed nearby, the September 2025 Mutual Defense Pact activates automatically. Suddenly, what was meant as a strike against Saudi Arabia becomes an act of war against Pakistan. And Pakistan is not just any country. Pakistan has one of the Muslim world's largest standing militaries. Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Even if Iran never intends to hit Pakistani assets, the sheer density of military and industrial targets across the eastern province increases the risk of catastrophic miscalculation. Pakistan's deployment doesn't just add air power to Saudi Arabia's defenses, it creates a tripwire, a mechanism that dramatically increases the political and military cost of Iran pulling the trigger again. Here's the part of this story that most analysts are sleeping on. Pakistan is simultaneously hosting ceasefire negotiations between the United States and Iran. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif is trying to position Pakistan as a neutral mediator, a bridge between Washington and Tehran, while at the same time visibly reinforcing Saudi Arabia's military position. That is an extraordinarily difficult tightrope to walk.
Pakistani officials have been careful with their language. They've repeatedly insisted the aircraft are not there to attack anyone. They're framing everything as purely defensive. They know that if they appear overtly anti-Iranian, their credibility as a mediator collapses, and the ceasefire talks in Islamabad collapse with it. But Pakistan also cannot afford to say no to Saudi Arabia. Riyadh has been one of Islamabad's most critical economic lifelines for decades through emergency deposits, deferred oil payments, and billions in financial support during Pakistan's recurring economic crises. So Islamabad is sending a message that is simultaneously aimed at two audiences: a warning to Tehran to show restraint, and a guarantee to Riyadh that Saudi Arabia will not stand alone. The gamble is that visible military deterrence will hold the line long enough for diplomacy to work.
Let's be direct about what we're actually talking about here. Pakistan is a nuclear-armed state. It has an active and capable nuclear arsenal. Any scenario in which Pakistani forces come under direct attack, even accidentally, activates a chain of decisions that no one in the region can fully control. This is what strategists call a tripwire deployment. It's a technique historically used by great powers to signal commitment. By placing your own forces in harm's way, you guarantee that any attack forces your hand. The United States did it in Europe during the Cold War. Pakistan is doing it now on the Gulf's eastern shore. And the implications extend far beyond the Gulf, because a Pakistani-Iranian confrontation wouldn't just stay between two countries. It would draw in the United States, potentially China, and every Gulf state watching nervously from the sidelines. The world has not seen a nuclear-armed state deployed in a forward combat posture in a regional crisis like this since the height of Cold War tensions. So what's the worst-case scenario? The fragile U.S.-Iran ceasefire, already under pressure following the killing of Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei on February 28th, breaks down completely. Iran launches fresh missile or drone strikes against Saudi energy targets. Pakistani aircraft are damaged or Pakistani personnel are killed. The Mutual Defense Pact activates. Pakistan now faces the worst possible choice: stay passive and destroy the alliance with Saudi Arabia, or respond militarily and widen the war beyond the Gulf into a multi-state, multi-alliance conflict. Even short of direct combat, a collapse of the ceasefire could force Pakistan to reinforce, sending additional fighter squadrons, airborne early warning aircraft, and logistics assets into Saudi Arabia. Tehran would likely interpret that reinforcement as Pakistan crossing from deterrence into active participation in a Saudi-led military coalition. And from there, the escalation ladder has no clear stopping point. The April 11th deployment of Pakistani fighter jets to Saudi Arabia is not a footnote. It is a turning point. For the first time, a nuclear-armed country has placed combat forces inside another nation's territory as a direct deterrent against a third regional power, and done so while simultaneously trying to broker peace between that same power and the United States. Whether this architecture stabilizes the Gulf or accelerates its next great crisis depends entirely on whether the ceasefire negotiations in Islamabad survive the coming weeks. The world should be watching very closely. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is far from over. I'll see you in the next one.